Hey guys, it's exactly 1 week after the Boston Marathon. So last week I posted kind of a race recap that didn't have a lot of photos or videos or anything because I wanted to just cover the actual race itself, and I didn't run with my phone because I had checked it. So I didn't run with my phone, I didn't take any pictures or videos during the race, but I kind of wanted to tell you about the race experience itself. But I do have some photos from the weekend I spent in Boston before the marathon, some photos from the Expo, some things from around town. So I also wanted to tell you a little bit about how Boston Marathon weekend went. So really those 2 days before the marathon. So the marathon is a Monday morning. I flew in really late on Friday, so I was really only there Saturday and Sunday, and then I flew home Monday night since I had to get back to work. So I kind of wanted to let you know how that weekend went, the kind of things you can do in Boston that weekend, the kind of things you could expect to see or experience at the Expo, and kind of give you an idea of what my experience was leading up to the race on Monday morning. So I wanted to get the Expo out of the way Saturday because I figured it would be busier on Sunday since that's the day before the marathon. I heard going to Friday was even better, but obviously I couldn't get into town that early. So I decided to go Saturday morning, get it out of the way. So Luis and I were staying at an Airbnb a few miles away from the Expo. So we just walked, well, we actually jogged about a mile and a half to the nearest metro station and took the train up to around Arlington, Boston Commons, so that we could go do a little shakeout run, just, another 2-3 miles, and then head to the Expo from there. So we jogged, about a mile and a half to the metro. So by the time I got to Boston Commons, I just wanted to do another 2.5 or 3 miles. Really easy, just wake the legs up a little bit after being on the plane all day Friday. So we jogged around up by the river. So I only did about 2.5 miles. I just did a little loop and then headed to the Expo. So the Expo itself was, I don't want to say underwhelming, but it, was a pretty standard big race expo. So the lines to get in were very, very long. There were actually 3 lines to get in because they had security, right? They were going through your bag. They were making sure you weren't bringing anything in. You weren't supposed to. So the lines on the right and left were very, very long. And they were, extending down the sidewalk pretty far in either direction, maybe like 50 to 100 people in each direction. If you get in a short line, the line into the Expo would probably only be about 5 minutes. If you got in a longer line, it'd probably be half an hour to an hour. Security was pretty fast. They just had metal detectors and people going through your bag, so it took, maybe 10 seconds a person to get through security. So the Expo obviously had a few different areas. It had kind of the vendor areas, and it had bib pickup on a different floor. So I wanted to get bib pickup out of the way first, and they actually put that on the top floor. So I had to go up a few levels to bib pickup. And it was kind of a weird setup because I think when I went there Saturday morning, it was probably around 10 a.m. And I guess it wasn't as busy as it is sometimes because they had an entire room that looked like it would have been, for people, for a line to kind of sneak back and forth. But there weren't enough people to have to use that space, but they still made us walk through this like empty space of like, it was silly. They were like forcing people not to skip it and not to cut through. Like they wanted everybody to walk through. And then you go back out of the room down the hall to where bib pickup actually is. So bib pickup was really quick. You already know what your bib number is, and they have it organized by number. So you just go up, you show your ID, you get your bib, you get your shirt. And then I headed back to the main expo area, which was cute, but it was pretty small. So actually the first room of the expo you go in is nothing but Boston Marathon merchandise for purchase. So like shirts, bags, stuffed animals, mugs, all sorts of, different clothing options. So this first room, they had like the 26.2 brew, like the tasting on the back, but this entire room was it was like a big auditorium room of just Boston Marathon stuff for purchase. And the way you exit, it's kind of unclear. It looks like that's the expo. It looks like you would just walk back out the door you came in. But actually, like, there was a little dark hallway off to the right. No signs, no arrows, nothing. But like if you had looked down that hallway on your way out, you would see another room full of all the vendors and tents. So a lot of people were kind of walking by it and then kind of looking around like, is this really it? This is the whole expo? And then they would kind of see this hallway and then realize the actual expo was down there. Um, so I kind of went through, I didn't buy anything. I was like, I already have my race shirt. I'll probably get some other stuff this weekend. I don't really need, like $100 Boston jacket. I'm still on a budget. So I headed down to the main expo. Um, and it wasn't really that big. Like if you've done any of the rock and roll series, or since I'm in San Diego, like a lot of the expos here for the big races are like in the convention center. They're quite large. Um, this expo really wasn't that big. You could probably walk through the whole thing in 10, maybe 10, 15 minutes. So, a lot of the big shoe companies were there, a lot of the fuel and hydration and things like that, and some kind of accessories. So we went to the noon tent and we got some drinks. We went to the Honey Stinger booth, and we got a couple snacks. And, we went around and basically got free samples of food and tastings and stuff. So they had a couple cool signs there. They had the starting line poster you could take a picture with. They had a Boston 2019 picture you could take a picture with. They had a nice, like welcome athlete sign. There were a lot of places where you could, get a picture or something like that. And they also had the Saucony by Dunkin' Donuts collaboration was probably the best because they had Dunkin' Donuts coffee and donuts over by the Saucony booth, and they had like this new shoe collaboration this year. So I tried on the shoes because I was actually racing in Sauconys. So I tried on the Dunkin' Donuts shoes, but they weren't actually that comfy, at least to me. They felt strangely spacious in the toe box, and I obviously didn't want to buy new shoes the day before a race to run in or anything like that, but I just I tried them on for fun. And then that was kind of it. We were done at the expo probably within half an hour, and we thought we could come back the next day if we wanted to walk around some more. There were a couple meetups, like Noon had a meetup both Saturday and Sunday where they would have like a 3 mile shakeout run, and Honey Stinger did the same thing Saturday morning. And I think Runnin' Rabbit had some, but Runnin' Rabbit wasn't in the expo. They had a different pop-up shop. But by the time we got out of the expo Saturday, we were hungry. It was, I think, noon already by the time we sat down to eat. So we didn't eat until like noon on Saturday. We had a pretty big lunch, and then we kind of walked around. We walked around by the finish line. We're kind of scoping out the area. Honestly, we didn't really do that much on Saturday. We walked around, we went through Boston Commons again. We ended up going over to Newbury Street and kind of walking up and down. We went into a couple thrift stores and stuff, and we ended up having dinner right on Newbury Street. We ended up getting a huge pepperoni pizza, and we ate all of it except one slice. So I think Luis had half of it, and I had everything of the other half except one slice. Actually, it was Saturday night we went out for dessert after we got that pizza dinner on Newbury Street. We went out to a place recommended by some friends, Modern Pastry Shop. Yeah, Modern Pastry Shop. And that was kind of in a different neighborhood. We had to take the metro. It was kind of northeast of Boston Commons. I can look up the neighborhood. So we went up there and we got dessert. We walked around a little bit, and we wanted to get home early-ish between, the 3-hour time zone change, the travel, the race, whatever. I think we were back home at like 9 or so. Woke up Sunday morning. I was supposed to do another little shakeout run, so I did a little 3 mile shakeout run. I was actually staying over by the Franklin Zoo, so I ran over there and did just some of the like flat dirt trails in there, headed home and did strides, and then Luis had met a friend on the north side of the river to go for a run, a longer run. So I went home and showered. He ended up coming back to shower too, and then we decided to go out for breakfast. So we went out to Newbury Street, and it was kind of like 10 or 11 a.m. again. Very busy, so we found kind of like the first reasonable, not super expensive place we could find, and I ended up having a pretty sad, lackluster breakfast, which, it was fine. It was food. It was familiar food. I eat eggs and potatoes and toast a lot, so I didn't want to do anything crazy. So that was fine. And then we ended up going to the Rabbit Gooder pop-up shop on Newbury Street. So, they had coffee and donuts there. They had the compression Normatec, not compression, but like the Normatec boots. that basically squeeze your legs and they help with blood flow and recirculation and things like that. So we actually hung out there for a while, and kind of one of my Instagram friends, I guess, recently started a sports bra company. She was actually there too. I ended up buying one of her sports bras that says Boston. You know, it was the blue and yellow, like Boston themed sports bra. And I ended up buying that, one of those as kind of like, my Boston race souvenir. Because these were kind of nice. They have a pocket in the front of the sports bra. So there are some bras out there that have like a pocket in the back, but like it's kind of awkward and hard to get to and hard to reach while you're running or even while you're just standing. But she made sports bras with a pocket in the front, big enough for, your phone. So I decided I would get that as kind of like my Boston souvenir, support her new business, get a cool bra that has like a nice handy pocket. So we hung out there, we had some coffee. Luis and I both sat in the boots for a while, I think probably 20, 30 minutes or so. They had the nice little reclining chairs there. We tried on some sunglasses. And then we walked around a little bit more around Newbury Street. And then there were a couple other little parks nearby. We walked around. We actually just laid out in the grass for a while.
Alright, it's like 3 o'clock on Sunday, the day before the race. Hanover. We're on Hanover Street at the north end in Boston. I don't know what to say. What do you think? Any other thoughts? Or what do you... Oh, the empty beer can at my feet. On our way over here after lunch, we just stopped at the Boston Public Market. It's just right behind us. Because it, looked good. I wanted to walk through. So we were looking at, the donuts, snacks, and food and all that good stuff. But we settled on beer and cider. So Luis actually picked out this Mass Landing Brewing Company Gunner's Daughter Milk Stout, which is probably the best beer I've ever had. Unfortunately, it sounds like a local brew, so like we'd have to get it somewhere around here, like a liquor store, and then try to take it back with us. I don't know if it's gonna work out. This is probably one of the best beers I've ever had, and I do like stouts and dark beers, but this is like a milk stout. It's so creamy and smooth. And both of us thought the ciders looked good. We ended up going to like the first place we saw, Red Apple Farm. This is actually ginger turmeric apple cider, and I thought it would be a little bit more biting and a little bit harsher because of the ginger and turmeric, but it's actually like very smooth and sweet, and it's really good. We actually bought 2 of them, and I dumped most of it into a bottle for tomorrow for post-race, because we're not going to have that much time after the race to do anything. Luis and I are both flying back that night. I have to go back to work. I could only take a couple days off to come out here. So I wanted to have like food and drink and everything back at our place. So after the race, we could go back, shower, eat and drink. I know I'm going to want to hydrate before I'm going to want to eat. Like, I'm usually not that hungry after a hard effort, but I'm really thirsty. So I wanted to make sure I had some good things to drink. And then we'll probably head to the airport and end up just eating there, just so that we're not running the risk of being late for the flight, especially with the streets flooded, with everybody coming off the marathon and all the spectators. I think we're going to have dinner with friends at like 5 or 6. I think 5. So hopefully we're done eating by 6, and then we get on the metro, get back to our place by 7. And then I'm really just going to pack my stuff up, put it out for tomorrow, lay out all my race gear, all the fuel, what I want to take to the finish and check, and what I want to take to the start and throw away. So like any fuel, hydration, or layers. Just make sure all my bags are ready.
So we met some friends for dinner. I ended up getting pizza again because plain pasta didn't sound that good. I didn't want like a cheesy heavy pasta, and a plain pasta with marinara didn't sound that good. So I ended up getting another pizza. We got home pretty early. I think probably around 8 o'clock. So got to bed nice and early to get ready for the race the next morning. So like I said in my race recap, I was up at like 5:30 in the morning on Monday to go get to Boston Commons and catch the bus to Hopkinton, because in my recap video I kept saying Hopkins, and I feel like I kind of knew that wasn't quite right, but I couldn't remember the full name. Now that it's been a week since the race, there were actually some race photos up. Unfortunately, race photos are like $100, and I can't really afford that, but I have a couple screenshots of my race photos just so you can kind of see what some of them looked like in terms of, the crowd and things like that. And I was able to get a couple photos from some friends. So you can kind of see, it was kind of dreary in the morning and cleared up later on. And then after the race, and Luis and I wanted to get out of the race area as soon as possible because of all the crowds. and we were obviously both hungry, but Luis actually had a flight around 5:30, so we had 4 hours before Luis's flight was leaving. Mine was later. Mine wasn't until like 7:30. So we really had about 2 hours until Luis had to be at the airport. So our goal was to kind of get away from the finish line as quickly as possible, and then eat, shower, pack, and get to the airport. So what we ended up doing was just going right back to the Airbnb. I had booked the Airbnb for Monday night too, so that we could leave all of our stuff there during the race and come back. Um, Instead of having like a normal 11 a.m. checkout, Luis would have had to carry around all of our luggage all day. So I had booked the Airbnb for Monday night, even though we were flying out Monday night, just to have all of our stuff there. So we ended up going straight back to the Airbnb. I think we walked a few blocks away from the race. We took a metro a few stops away too, and then we just took a Lyft back to our place because the nearest metro stop was still a mile and a half, and I wasn't too keen on walking another mile and a half after the marathon. So we ended up showering, packing, and we decided to just eat at the airport because the area we were in didn't really have any good looking, quick food, and we didn't want to risk Luis missing his flight back. So we ended up going straight to the airport. By the time we ate, it was probably 4 o'clock. So I hadn't had a meal all day, or after the marathon or anything like that. I had obviously eaten some food before the marathon, and I had some snacks in my checked luggage and some fluids after the race. So I'd been kind of snacking and drinking, but I hadn't had a meal yet all day. So we ended up eating at the airport. We each had, kind of a small to medium size meal, just a kind of a regular American restaurant. And then Luis's flight left pretty much as soon as we finished eating. So then I had a couple hours to kill. I had to go out of security and get to my other terminal and go through security. And I knew by the time I landed, it's a 6-hour flight back to California, and I was gonna lose 3 hours because of the time change. I was basically gonna get back way too late to eat, and I'd only had one meal so far that day. So I wanted to grab another meal in the airport before my flight. But actually, I ended up walking quite a bit that day after the marathon around the airport and just around town and packing and everything. I think mostly around the airport I did a lot of walking, which I think was actually really, really good for flushing my legs and reducing soreness and aches and pains. So actually, by the time I got on my flight, I had walked over 50,000 steps that day and gone over 33 miles. But actually, I think it helped a lot with not feeling so sore and stiff, because the hardest part is just like getting up out of your chair after a marathon. So as long as you're up and moving, you really do feel a lot better. So by the time I got on the plane, I had been walking quite a bit, but I think I actually felt a little bit better because of it. And actually Tuesday morning when I woke up, once I actually was like up and I stood up and walked around, I felt pretty good. And honestly, recovery's been going really well. I think partially because I didn't run as fast as I was planning to, so my legs weren't as beat up. Partially, I was walking and moving around so much after the race, it really helped flush things out of my system. So recovery has actually been going really well. I think I'm going to put up a marathon recovery video, but I wanted to wait a few more days until kind of my recovery period is over and I'm running regularly again. But I wanted to wait a couple more days just to make sure like I'm back to normal, and then I was going to kind of post a marathon recovery video too and let you know how I'm coming back from the race and what I'm planning to do next. So I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing a little bit more about what we did in Boston that weekend right before the race, a little bit more about the expo and things like that, and of course let me know if you have any questions in the comments about, the race or the expo or anything else about Boston weekend. So I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.